Let's start in the Kentucky Subregional today, as I am joined by the fantastic voice of Western Kentucky volleyball, Brett Williams. Brett, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Daniel. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We've got the bracket. We've got the matchups. It's a late night one for your Hilltoppers. 21-0, a fantastic season. Walk me through some of the highlights of this season for fans that may not have spent too much attention being paid towards the Western Kentucky team.
Yeah, this has been a really exciting spring for all of us here in Bowling Green. I mean, obviously the 2019 season was a banner one for this team. Only had 2 losses, hosted the NCAA tournament first and second rounds for the first time in program history. Just did a lot of things. I mean, this program's been, one of the best in the country for those that really aren't familiar with it for quite some time. They just finished their 21st consecutive 20-win season. So that's been certainly something that they've hung their hats on. But 2019 was a really special season among all of that. And with the entire team basically back, they were really looking forward to what they could do this spring. And I think they've even exceeded expectations. 21-0, only lost 4 sets all year. So this team has just shown up night after night after night and been dominant, and really excited to see what they can do in Omaha.
Yeah, 2019 ended with a 5-set loss against Louisville, a team that got a national seed. I'm going to ask you, you were around the team for the selection show. Was there a little bit of surprise that the 21-0 Hilltoppers were not a top 16 seed?
There certainly was a little bit. I think particularly after what happened in 2019, they were thinking that, hey, because we made a late jump at the end when that selection show came up into those top 16 seeds. But I think this year, when you really look at it, I mean, I think they almost went chalk with the AP or the AVCA rankings, as it were, because the top 16 were the top 16. WKU came in 19 in the recent week. I think they got in what was essentially the 18 spot in the bracket. So ultimately, when you look at that, I think it's fair. But there was definitely a little murmuring going on when that last national seed was announced, and it wasn't WKU.
21-0. It's been a fantastic season. But I think the one thing that probably deters a lot of college volleyball fans from tuning in and day out to watch is just the lack of ranked competition. So now we get to see the Hilltoppers on the big picture on ESPN3. Who are a couple names that we can keep an eye out? I know Lauren Matthews, an absolute stud. What does she do so well? And who are a couple, fillers around her that really prop her up?
Well, Lauren's a really unique middle because of the way that head coach Travis Hudson runs his offense here. He makes no bones about it. He's always done it, but Lauren kind of elevates that to a whole new level because they're playing a much slower tempo rather to the middle than you would typically see. So she's able to wait and kind of gauge the floor a little bit more before she's making her swings. And when she does, she's dominant. I mean, she has the single match hitting percentage record here. She did that in fall of 2019. She came close this year. She had one error very late, but almost set the all-time NCAA record for highest hitting percentage in a match with at least 20 swings. So she's truly a superstar, absolutely. But I think when you look at this team, it starts at the setter position. Nadia Judine has been phenomenal in that spot. She's a transfer from Xavier. This is her second year with the team. And I think she was the missing link in 2018 because in 2017, we graduated the best setter in program history in Jessica Lucas, who's now an assistant coach. You know her very well from her time at Purdue. But, Nadia came in after that void of 2018 and has really opened up this offense. She's able to run it so well. She's able to spread the ball around. We've got pin hitters that can hit. We've got, L2s that can get in there as well. And then obviously Lauren and Katie Eisenbarger, who's also in the top 20 in hitting percentage nationally. She does what she does. So Nadia is able to do all of that. She's second in the country in assists per set. I think she's really the X factor for this team. But at the end of the day, as a whole, this team really doesn't have a weakness because they do everything so well. They serve tough. The ace numbers don't pop off the page, but they have a lot of good servers back there that can get you out of system. Their defense rises to the occasion, particularly against teams where they really need to. I think this is a team that morphs to its opponent. So if a team is going to come at them with fire, they're going to answer that and they're going to rise their offensive level. If they're playing a team that's better defensively, they're going to make sure they tighten up as well so they're not making the errors and can give it right back to them.
So let's wrap this up by giving a little bit of a bracket look. Kentucky is looming, but obviously you've got to get by Jackson State first. This is an 11-0 team that was named as a replacement because Arkansas Pine Bluff got COVID. So Jackson State, the regular season SWAC champions, head coached by Rose Washington, a little undersized though. Taking a look, Alexis Williams, is their leading player, but 5'11" at the right side, a freshman from Texas, and then another sophomore outside in Jylen Witten seem to be leading this team. It's always going to be interesting when we don't have too much prep, but give me a little bit about what this matchup could entail. Is height something that Western could take advantage of?
Certainly possible. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think I just said there is no weakness. I think ironically, the one weakness that WKU does have, particularly when it goes up against, say a Washington State, if it can get through Jackson State, is its own size. WKU is not a huge team. And that sometimes comes back to haunt them when they play, Washington State. I know has got that freshman Juliana Dalton, who's 6'5". Those are certainly matchups to watch if they can get past Jackson State, but hopefully that's an advantage in the first round. I think the biggest thing, kind of going back to what I mentioned about WKU adjusting to the type of game that its opponent will play, that's something to watch, because Jackson State is number 1 in the country in opposing hitting percentage. So at that point, you're looking at a very elite defensive team. And so WKU, even though they've got a high-powered offense, they're going to be able to get theirs. They may not get theirs at quite the efficiency that we're used to seeing. So the defense is going to have to rise to the occasion. I've seen them do it before. I believe they'll do it again.
So that's a 10:30 Eastern time start, 9:30 in the Central where you are. Should be a gritty, work for every single point kind of opening round match. Cannot wait to tune in for your broadcast. Brett, thank you so much for tuning in and joining me.
Appreciate it, Daniel. Looking forward to this tournament. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, we're going to keep rolling it along. Jackson State is next. He's Brett Williams. I'm Daniel Gillman. Thank you so much. Now to the other side of this Western Kentucky Jackson State match, and I am honored to be joined by the Jackson State head coach, Rose Washington. Coach, welcome on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It must have been a roller coaster of a tournament for you. I mean, it was for everybody with COVID and everything like that, but what was it like? Walk me through the morning of the championship, or whenever you found out that you guys were going to be crowned.
Well, obviously, like you said, COVID had a lot to do with everything. But, we were prepared. We went undefeated, and we knew our opponents well, even though the rivalry presents a whole different story during tournament time. And like I tell my girls, it's a whole other season within itself. So, but this class of seniors, as well as this group as a team, have been performing all year and have really accepted the challenge that we have put forth to them.
11-0 regular season, SWAC champs. You're making your first trip to the NCAA tournament since 2015, but you mentioned this class and you went from 8 wins, 11 wins, 18 wins, really progressing through. What is this senior class and what are these veterans like?
Well, since 2015, this is the class that, the beginning of the class that really was going to be the start of us getting back to where we've been before in terms of winning the championship. So that's why I'm so very proud of this class, and the addition that we've had last year added 8 freshmen to this class. But this class was the sort of the resurgent of my program to bring it back to the winning level that we were accustomed to.
In the last match you played in the semifinal win, 4 players, really stepped up. You had 3 with 10 or more kills. What's your identity? Is there a lot of balance, or is there one player that really carries the team?
Balance. The team, it's just balance, and that's been the difference in this team, unlike other teams in the past. There's no one person you can focus in, and we run our offense that way. So obviously we know it starts with fundamental, it starts with the pass, and in order to run the offense that we would like to run, like anyone else. But that's been our trademark. It's just the balance that we've had in every rotation.
Alexis William is going to be a name that people are going to watch out for in this match against Western Kentucky. But I'm sure you've watched the tape on these Hilltoppers. They've got a ton of size. Lauren Matthews in the middle is a juggernaut. Who's going to have to step up in the front row to really try to, push the envelope against the Hilltoppers?
Everyone, everyone, obviously our middles. I mean, they're the workhorse in volleyball. They have to go left to right to help, and then maintain their own person in front of them. But everyone, I'm going to have to rely on my middles, Marina Brito and what I call her T, but Tyler, but everyone, we're not as big, and Western Kentucky is so athletic that we know the order is tough, but we're just glad for the opportunity. And like I tell the girls, the ball does cross the net, and we do have an opportunity to get the first opportunity to do something. So we know they're big. We know they're big blocks. They're so smart. They're well coached, and always have been. And we know it's a tough challenge, and understandably so. But you never know. We're gonna run our offense, and we're gonna pass, and we're gonna do the things necessary to try to fight for each point.
Last question for you, Coach. What are you going to do all day? It's a 10:30 p.m. start time. How can you stay busy? How can you keep those players activated and engaged?
I know it's we start the process at 6:30 and stuff. You go to dinner, and then you have your serve and pass, and so it kind of leads into it properly. But I guess that's been the true to form with everything with COVID. You can't do much, so you don't have just rest time, and we'll try to find something. Obviously, we'll have a coaches meeting to try to still at the last moment not coaches meeting, but team coach meeting to see, the last moment to see how we could capture some of these points and offensively and defensively, and to prepare them not only mentally but physically. And so, but yes, you're right. For the whole 3 days we're there, everything is kind of late for us. But again, we're just glad for the opportunity. And when it's time to go, I'm sure my girls will be ready.
Patience and hunger, Coach. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so very much for having me.
She's the Jackson State head coach, Rose Washington. 10:30 p.m. start time between WKU and JSU. Let's move on out to talk Illinois State, UNLV.
Let's head down to the second of 2 first-round matches in this Kentucky subregion. It's Illinois State against UNLV, a pair of automatic qualifiers, and I'm joined now by Jake Fogal. He covers Illinois State volleyball for WZND Radio in Illinois. And Jake, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm happy to have another avid volleyball fan and a passionate, follower of the sport with me. Illinois State is just a team that puts together standard, right, organized, to the book volleyball. They make the other team make a lot of mistakes, right?
Absolutely. They like to earn their own points. If they don't, that's usually a problem with their coach.
Yeah, and there's not many problems with their coach, Leah Johnson, this year. Back-to-back Missouri Valley champs. It's their 3rd trip to the NCAA tournament, but Jake, they haven't really had a lot of luck, right? They've had to face usually a top seed or a top 3 or 4 seed. Last season, it was Wisconsin. Couldn't quite get by the Badgers, unable to grab a set. 2 years ago, they ran into the buzzsaw that is Jordan Thompson and Cincinnati. So this season, this feels, at least to me, like Illinois State has to be feeling confident facing a team like UNLV that isn't a blue blood.
No, I agree. The luck of the draw has not been with the Redbirds these last couple of years. And Kaylee Martin, their outside hitter senior, her main saying after the ceremony was, we expect to win now, but they cannot get out of these draws. They have Kentucky if they beat in UNLV. But the one thing they really want to do now is just get that NCAA tournament win, which has eluded them these last 2 years.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me last season was that big run that Illinois State had, right? They took Illinois in 4 sets, and then they beat UCF, and then they took Marquette to 5 sets. At the end of the season, though, it was a tournament run that decided and defined the season. This season's been a little different, right? 5 losses. Has there been a roller coaster ride of sorts for the Redbirds this year?
I think you can split the season in 2 because the Redbirds had about 3 weeks off where they had to take off due to health reasons. And from that point, I think it's March 14th, they're 9-0. So they're rolling just like UNLV is at 12-0. I think you can kind of just make that difference. They started 7-5, but that non-conference kind of did them in early against Marquette and Cincinnati.
So the 4 weeks off is going to make this 11 days off feel like nothing. I assume that Illinois State's going to come out ready, no rust, a lot of rest. Who are some role players on this Illinois State team to help Martin and to help Kushner out there on the outsides?
You got to look at the Missouri Valley Conference Setter of the Year, Steph Jankowitz. That's actually her 2nd award. That's the first time in the league's history that's happened. So She's talented. She can set it to just about anybody on the court. I've seen her actually. We play on a gym floor where the hoops are up. I've seen her set it from like where the basketball hoop would be to like a perfect Sarah Kushner kill. She is definitely the cog in that machine. But you got to mention Sydney Holt too. She's come on strong. She hit around 500 for the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, which she got injured earlier in the season, so they were kind of missing her during that 7-5 start. They are hitting on all levels right now.
Last question here for you. And, UNLV and Illinois State are going to start at 7:00 Eastern time before the Western Kentucky and Jackson State match. As you mentioned, winner is going to go on to take on Kentucky, which is a team that has historically struggled to get out of that third round for the Kentucky Wildcats. So there's an opportunity for Illinois State. But what's the game script? What do we need to see happen for a team like Illinois State to succeed in a high intensity, obviously high dramatic, atmosphere? No,
absolutely. If they block, they have been the best blocking team in the Missouri Valley Conference this year. I think about 2.5% with Sydney Holt. And Nicole Lund has come on pretty strong there. But if it gets past the block, their back row has been very talented too. I believe they're ranked top 15 in the nation in digs. It's a very talented defensive squad, and coming from a conference that strives on defense, they have to play their defensive front well if they want to succeed, and I think they can do that. And you mentioned as well, if they can earn their points, and they don't really focus on errors from the other team, they primarily play on earning their own points. If they can do that, they're going to be very due for a good run.
Yep. 12th in the nation in digs per set at 18.7. There are not many teams ahead of them that are in the NCAA tournament. In fact, just off of a quick look, it looks like Wright State is the only team better than Illinois State that's in the NCAA tournament in just keeping that ball in play. And I like to compare it to tennis. If you make the other team or the other player make that mistake, it just elongates your momentum and possibly keeps a Cinderella run like Illinois State may have in front of them with Kentucky waiting for them in the second round. Thank you so much for joining me, Jake.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Always fun, and it's great to dice up some Illinois State volleyball with Jake Fogal. He covers the team for WZND Radio. Next, we're going to head out to Las Vegas, wrap up this region by breaking down the other side of this match. It's time to wrap up the Kentucky Subregional with our final team of the first round. It's UNLV, the Rebs. They're going to take on Illinois State. We heard from the Redbirds support. Now we're going to hear from out in Vegas. It's Alex Wright joining me, the sports editor at Scarlet and Gray Free Press in Vegas, the UNLV student newspaper. Alex, talk to me about this team. 12-0. Any single time a team is undefeated heading into the postseason, you've got to have a little bit of confidence, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel like this team has a lot of confidence. You go back to earlier this season, a big moment that they talked about was when they swept Colorado State, who's dominated the conference the past few years. And winning that series on the road and then following up with the win against Boise State. And that really gave them a lot of confidence. And Dawn Sullivan, the head coach, she's been confident in her players, and they just rode in that momentum throughout the season to get to 12-0 and get into the NCAA tournament.
First time winning the Mountain West Conference. Talk about getting over a hump. It's the third time, though, in this millennial that UNLV has made the NCAA tournament. They were at-large bids in 2016 and 2007. But you know what, Alex? That team didn't have Mariana Hayden and her serve. What does that bring to the table with such a dominance, nearly one ace per set this season for the Rebels?
Yeah, she's been amazing this year for UNLV. She helps set the tone for them. They want to attack and apply pressure. That's something Coach Sullivan's talked about, is getting the other team out of system. And when you have such a powerful player like Hayden who can serve the ball like that, it really can put pressure on the other team and allows you to, set up your offense and kind of prepare for what they have to offer.
They've got three players with over 130 digs, so a nice, well-balanced back row. Hayden is one of those, as well as a couple others, one in the front row, one in the back row. Oliviera is the defensive specialist I mentioned. But taking a look at this two-setter formation, Alex, anytime that you've got a team that has not really proven themselves to the nation you always want to look at a couple of those things, right? UNLV doesn't have any notable wins this year because of the lack of non-conference play. But what stands out to you the most about the 6-2 formation that they run?
Again, they're just very aggressive offensively. They, believe in themselves. They're pretty, deep team. Coach Sullivan talked about how she's got a lot of confidence in her bench, so they can roll out that formation and they, feel comfortable against any, not just against any team or any matchup, but they're comfortable with anybody in the formation with them on the team.
Now, last question here. Is there one disadvantage to this team? Is it a height thing? I noticed that Hayden has half of the team's aces. So where does it kind of lie when you see, okay, what does Illinois State need to do in order to get past UNLV in this match?
I think they really, they need to set the tone. They need to get UNLV out of system. Get some early aces, build up the lead a little bit. I know UNLV, there have been a couple times early in the year where I remember the Boise State game, they were up 2-0. In the third set, they had a shot to close it out and ended up going to 5 sets. So, there are flaws, I think, in this team. Obviously, not having an out of conference schedule kind of impacted them. So that's something that they have to overcome. But UNLV practices really hard. Coach Sullivan talked about how the practices are harder than the games. So I feel like that they'll be ready to play. I think Illinois State just has to kind of apply some pressure, build a lead, and then kind of play their own game and force the Rebels to catch up.
UNLV looking to do the same thing they did in 2016 and beat a team they're not supposed to beat in this first round. 2016, it was a ranked Utah team. This year, it's a talented Illinois State bunch. That match is at 7:00 on Wednesday, the 14th. It is one day filled with a ton of matches, and I cannot wait to feast my eyes on specifically this one. This should be a good one. Alex Wright, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Daniel.
Keep your eyes peeled for the Purdue and Oregon sub-region. That episode will be posted for you soon as we continue to build towards this NCAA tournament.